Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. Well, it's been a while since I made an XRP video, and I figure now is a good time to make one. So let's turn back the clock and go back 3 months and watch this. Now, it could differ from what this fractal does. That is a possibility, as every time this structure repeats, it's going to look original. I'd like to see price get above this high. That is the high before the decline. Once I believe it gets above this, it's really going to take off. So folks, as you can see, we are mighty close. This is the end of the sideways range-bound time. Folks, after the sideways range-bound time comes the bull run. We are at the door, the threshold of the bull run. This is exciting. I can't underscore it enough. This is the point where the chart changes and starts moving up. So that was recorded over here 3 months ago. And the reason why I was excited is because I thought what is taking place today was potentially taking place over here. As you can see, it's a very similar situation. It's in a range and then it moves up potentially out of this range, but no, it didn't. It turned around and fell right back down. So this range is the smaller correction that takes place before the bull run. That is why I was saying we are at the threshold. We're close. When you consider how long this range-bound time actually lasts, being at the tail end of it is at the threshold of the bull run. However, this did take certainly a long time to play out, and it's still at that point where it could turn around and fall back into this zone, but the way it's behaving gives me hope that this is indeed the beginning of the bull run. Now, why do I think that this line is important? Well, let me show you how I came to that conclusion. Okay, so this is the repetitive macro structure that XRP has. For those of you who follow this channel, you know what this is. For those of you who are new, stick around and I'll briefly explain it. So this repetitive macro structure has three main parts to it. It has a bull run, it has a decline, and it has a sideways range-bound time. As you can see, this plays out on different time frames. So here it played out on a very bigly time frame, as someone who recently won the election might say, versus here it played out on a very small time frame. After every single bull run, we can see one here, we can see one here, we can see one here, and yes, this was a bull run, and yes, this was a bull run. Structurally, these three bull runs have all the same characteristics. If we go further back in time, all these bull runs that came before it, right here and right here, also have those same characteristics. In fact, I have a Patreon where I deep dive into this structure. After this bull run comes a decline. We see one take place here, we see one take place here, we see one take place here, and if we go further back in time, the same is true. After every single bull run comes a decline. After every single bull run comes a decline. So that is repetitive. After the decline comes a sideways range-bound time. It happens every single time. This is the part that loses many analysts, many good analysts. And there's a good reason for that. It's because it just seems chaotic, disjointed, and kind of random. I'm here to tell you that it is not. And to show you that it's not, I break it into three separate fractals, and in each fractal I have substructures. So let me explain. So this first fractal, price moves up in part A and moves back down. In part B, it goes flat. Now, sometimes part B will angle down as well. We see that take place once again over here. In part A, price moved up and moved down. This is in fractal 1, and then part B, it goes flat. In fractal 2, there's three waves, wave A, wave B, and wave C. We see that take place over here, wave A, wave B, and wave C. In fractal 3, this is the most complex of the fractals and the most challenging to follow. Price moves up to a peak, which is part A, and then it crashes or declines, which is part B, that's the low, and then it recovers, does a smaller correction, and then goes into the bull run. Now, those are simple steps, but the problem is that it plays out uniquely every single time. So this brings us to a bigger concept. When a fractal repeats, the idea repeats, but the timing, the height, and the depth those do not repeat. Those will always be original to the new iteration. So if we look over here to this third fractal, we see that it moved up to a peak, which was part A. Instead of crashing, this one just declined to a low, which was part B. It then has recovered, and it has been in this smaller correction before what I believe is potentially the bull run starting now. Of course, we'll have to see. This could potentially move back down and continue in this small correction before the bull run. Now, as this has played out, it has been a challenge to follow. So this is where I'll explain why this is so challenging, this fractal. So as you can see, it moves up to a peak, and then it moved down here. Well, this could be the low. So this would have been part B. As it played out, it moved up. That still made sense. It's recovering off the low. But then it continues to go lower, and so this becomes part B. So I don't know how this structure is going to look. What this analysis is about the functions of the fractals or the structures. So it could play out uniquely, but still have those same functions. And that's what we're looking for. Now, to play the devil's advocate, say this turned around and crashed to a new low, lower than here, then this would be part B. Again, we're looking for functions. We're looking for a low. If that were to happen, then we would have to wait for a recovery, for a smaller correction, and then go into the bull run. I don't think that's at play. I just want to show you how challenging this structure can be to navigate. Okay, so now that we got all that out of the way, let's go back to discussing that green line and why I believe that that line, that level, is important to the XRP chart coming to life. Here we are at the dawn of time on the XRP chart. This is at the very beginning of the XRP chart. XRP starts with a sideways range-bound time. Here is the third fractal. So as you can see, price moves up to a peak, which is part A, and then it crashes, which is part B. It then recovers, does a smaller correction. So here we are zoomed in. So after it recovers, does that small correction. Once price starts pulling out of that small correction, that's where it starts coming to life. In fact, it doesn't even have to get above the high of the sideways range-bound time, which takes place in this one, in fractal 2, just as it does on today's chart. So it starts coming to life before it gets past this. Of course, this high is also a key level it needs to get above. If we go further in time, here to this third fractal, we zoom in, we see that it comes to a peak in part A and then crashes in part B. It then recovers, does that smaller correction, and again, once it gets out of this smaller correction, it comes to life. That was this one, which played out on a very small time frame. Let's go to this one. So price moves up to a peak, which is part A. It then declines, which is part B. It then recovers, does the small correction, and just bam, as soon as it starts pulling out of the small correction, it just shoots up. So once again, we see that pulling out of this small correction is where price comes to life. That was here. Let's go to this one right here. So here's that third fractal. And as you can see, price moves up to a peak, which is part A. It then declines, which is part B. And then it recovers, does the small correction. Once it pulls out of this small correction, bam, it's off to the races. I hope you're noticing that every one of these fractals looks different. It looks unique. So this underscores that it looks different every single time, but the functions are the same. So what I do is a study of the functions of the fractals. So that was this one. Let's look at this one right here. So price moves up to a peak. Look how long and torturous this, this move up to this peak was. It then crashes. It then recovers, does that smaller correction. Once it pulls out of this smaller correction, bam, it's off to the races. The next one that takes place after this one is where we are today. And as you can see, we are above this small correction. So while there could be some choppiness, it is my belief that if this is what I believe it is, it should continue on. Now, like I mentioned before, the bull run is a repetitive structure. For those of you who want a deep dive on what the bull run structure looks like, on my Patreon page under collections, I have a series of videos where I deep dive into this coming bull run structure. It's a repetitive structure. I also have a Discord that's linked to my Patreon where we discuss XRP and other cryptos. In fact, that is the best place to communicate with me. I regularly post charts and updates, much more than I do on YouTube or on Twitter. I'll put a link to my Patreon page in the description of this video. I'll also include a discount code that drops it from $5 down to $3 for the month of November. There's a few more charts I want to quickly show you. One is XRP dominance chart, and it is my belief that this structure is repetitive. You can watch a video that I did right here on this chart. I believe we are at the threshold of this beginning to move up. Now, the timing may not play out like this. Don't look at any of my charts and try to deduce timing, height, or depth on them. You will undoubtedly be disappointed. It's just to show you structurally what lies ahead or what potentially lies ahead. It's going to play out unique every single time. And this, I don't know how high it will go, but historically speaking, at this point in the chart, it shoots up and it shoots up high. Here we are zoomed out. So this structure has repeated 2 times. It takes a long time for this structure to play out. We are about to start to repeat it once again. So this move up is what we are going into, and it is a large move up for the most part. It has been historically. So it is my belief that this is likely going to play out again. The first time it took place in December 2014. The second time it took place in April, May 2017. So what I believe is coming down the pike is something similar. I don't know how high it will go. I don't know how long this will take. This is probably stretched out way too far. I stretched out time-wise to match this bounce down here. But as you can see, it takes a short amount of time for it to play out. And the last time it went up to like 31%. So it captured, in other words, 31% of the crypto market. 31% of all the money in the crypto market went into XRP at this point. Over here, it was 20%. So between 20 and 30% historically is what has happened. Now, I don't know how high it'll go this time. I'm just stretching this, like I said, to match this bounce time-wise. So as you can see, we are starting to pull out of this bounce. Folks, good days are coming. The other one is the Bitcoin chart. I just recently did a video on this. You can watch it here. This structure that we are in, I mentioned how we are at the beginning of this structure, this fourth structure. It is playing out fast and furious. Here's the first structure that ever played out on the Bitcoin chart. This is the final peak of the 2011 bull run. As you can see, it looks like we may have already reached that peak. This was between April and June 2011. This next one was the peak of the bull run from July to December 2013. If we're following this one, we still have a bit more to go. Now, the timing, height, and depth of this part that's remaining is unknown. I don't know if it's going to go this high. It could go higher. It could go lower. Here's the 2017 bull run structure. This played out from September to December. And as you can see, we still have a bit more to go on this one. And here's the July through November 2021 structure. Today's chart doesn't look like it's following it, at least not at the moment. So as you just saw, we've actually gone through a good chunk of the structures. There's still some more on a few of them. On that first one, it looks like we would be potentially at the peak, although there's 2 other ones that show it moving up further. But even if it does move up further, that is going to be a short amount of time. After it peaks out, many times money rotates into altcoins, which will be good for XRP. So there you have it, folks. That's the way I see the XRP chart at the moment. We're entering into some exciting times. This is the culmination point of years of pain and torture. I don't believe this time is going to last a really long time. Typically, it's short. You can see how these bull runs, the time frames, they take place in a very short amount of time. So before you know it, we're probably going to be at the peak. I don't know where that peak is, but I believe that this structure, especially looking at that XRP dominance chart, we're at a point where it potentially is going to move up quite nicely. Of course, I don't know the future. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. If you did enjoy this video, It'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. And if you are not a subscriber yet and would like to see more of this type of technical analysis, this type of TA, if you haven't noticed, there's no one else doing this type of TA. So if you're not yet a subscriber, I recommend hitting that subscribe button. I'll continue to follow up on this chart as it continues to develop. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.